We are going to get started with our underwater adventure by making land, sand, and rocks to start with. So in Modeler, I'm going to start with a box. So under the Create tab, I'm going to go down and get Box. And then in the very top left corner where it says Top, we're going to click and drag a box. Now, usually we don't want land to just be a flat box. That doesn't really look realistic, and we probably want some little hills and valleys and some differentiation on that, as well as roundness. We don't look across the landscape and see sharp edges. It's not what nature is. So we want to divide this up. So I'm going to hit Enter and Shift D for divide. We want to choose Metaform. Every time you choose Metaform, it means it's going to include it or round it out. So I'm going to say yes. And then just using my keyboard, I'm going to hit Shift D again and OK. Shift D again, OK. Shift D again and OK. So that gives me some really nice divisions here that I can start pulling up and down to be my sand. So I'm going to go to point mode, and I'm going to just randomly select some places where I might have some hills and move down to one of the low windows, either the right or the left, and using the move tool, the shortcut is the letter T, move them up. Now that looks pretty horrible. It looks spiky and horrible. So I'm going to hit Enter, deselect, and now if I hit Tab, it all gets all nice and more like land. So I planned this underwater adventure to have a old sunken ship or a treasure chest, and so I think I'm going to make a deeper hole, and I can either choose it with points or polygons, but I think I'm going to lower this a little bit by selecting, hitting T, and kind of making a place where the old ship could have rolled down into an abyss. And so if there's also like a cave or something like that you want to make, I might just select polygon like this, hit E for extend, and H is to shrink it, T will move it backwards a little bit. And you may have to keep adjusting with H to make sure that it doesn't overlap itself. And just push that in there. I think I want to rotate it a little bit more and push it down. So that looks pretty good for now. Deselect. And I'm going to kind of adjust this a little bit so it looks a little bit more believable. I'm going to use Control T, and I'm going to just pull up some points here, maybe even pull them forward. So it looks like the cave has kind of a covered entrance, and it's not so perfect. It's kind of lopsided. And then I plan to put a few more rocks and things around here. So you could do a volcano or any kind of strange terrain that you want to put in here. Okay, so the last thing I'm going to do here is just in polygons, select it, hit right bracket to select the whole thing, and then the letter Q is the shortcut for coloring. So try to name things what they are.
Edward Machik to the attendance office. Edward Machik to attendance.
And I'm going to choose kind of a brown sandy color for sand and make it smooth and say OK. All right, pretty simple. The next thing I'm going to do is make a couple of rocks, and rocks are really, really simple. I'm going to put them on another layer, and then I'm going to move them over. The reason I'm putting them on another layer is so that I don't have to get them all tangled up in the wires of the of the land right now. And I won't need them to be on a separate layer because they're not going to move unless there's some reason to have a rock avalanche or something. So again, we're going to start super easy. We're going to get a box, click and drag, and this time we want the whole box a square. I'm just going to hit enter and then Shift D again, Metaform, and I'm going to Shift D again one more time to Metaform, and you could stop with the first one if you want, especially if you're kind of worried about too many polygons. But what I can do here is I can go to Modify, and there's Magnet, and I can just kind of push and pull in different places on this rock. And it looks a little sharp on this side, so I'm going to push it back down. So the nice thing about rocks is they look different from every side. At least most of them do. So I could just make one rock and then copy and paste it again and again, and either enlarge it or reduce it or rotate it. Okay. Starting to look like some weird little mashed turtle. So there's this rock, and I'm going to do one rock that's just the simpler version that we started out with, so you can see the difference. If you don't really need a whole lot of detail, then you can just do Shift D one time and then hit Tab to smooth it out and do the same thing. Either use Control T to kind of pound up and push around that rock, or Magnet. And Magnet is underneath Modify and Magnet right here. The shortcut for that is the colon key if you like to use shortcuts. Kind of easy to use shortcuts sometimes. Alright, so I have two different kinds of rocks. I really kind of think I like the simpler one better. I'm just going to right bracket and delete that one. Okay, so I'm going to grab this rock, right bracket, Control C is copy, Control V is paste. It pasted it right on top of the other one, so I need to move it, and move is T. Alright, so now to change it, I want it to look like a completely different rock. So I'm just going to twist it and twirl it, and maybe stretch it a little bit. And I'm going to name it Rock. And I think I'm going to choose like a gray rock color and say OK. Alright, so I can turn on both layers at the same time by holding down the Shift key, and then I can see that my rocks are levitating. They're magical levitating rocks. So I want to select one and just bring it down and set it on the ground. And sometimes you might have to roll them a little bit so they look natural. They wouldn't really be like standing up on one point. And so you want to make sure they look like they're laying on the ground. Deselect that one. And I'm going to get this one. And I think I'm just going to roll it a little bit and put it down kind of next to this. So I could add a few more rocks. And I think I will add a few more near the cave, the mouth of the cave, to kind of make it look a little bit better. So, happy making rock time for you, and go ahead and make your sand, land, and rocks.